Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to give you guys a June garden tour because there's so much in bloom, and I wanted to start here on this little strip of grass that I share between me and my neighbor's driveway because it is in full bloom and it's so beautiful. All of these flowers that I got here were gifted to me from people in the neighborhood, so this whole garden was free and I absolutely love it. And the irises are just finishing off now, but that big chunky burst of yellow is just so beautiful. So I wanted to take you on a tour and show you what's in bloom, and we'll talk about flowers and vegetables, and I hope you enjoy today's tour. If you're new here, my name is Bree from Urban Gardening Canada, and I garden in Ottawa Zone 5. This garden is a mix of perennials, fruits, herbs, flowers, and vegetables. So let's get into this tour, starting with this beautiful section here. So I have some beautiful yellow irises here. I have catmint here, and there is quite a bit of lawn here that is on my neighbor's side, but they've allowed me to dig this up. So I think in the future, I'm actually going to dig up the rest of this lawn because none of us want to be mowing it. And I'm actually going to split this up because everything's gotten quite crowded over here. And I love the way that it looks. I think I'm just going to spread it a little bit further here. So I have what I think these are called spider worts, but if it's wrong, I will correct it in the caption here. And then some geraniums, and of course the irises. And then I have two hostas that are back here, and they are really jammed in there. They're not quite being seen anymore. Some evening primrose. I had some cornflowers over here, and then I have some daisies that are about to be coming up soon, and the pollinators are absolutely going to love that. It's looking so lush and full, but again, I really do need to spread this out a bit more, but otherwise it's the perfect way that when people are driving down the street that you just get to see these beautiful blooms and you know that there is a gardener that lives here. So this view is a little ugly because we have some garbage cans over here that is filled with green waste and some cinder blocks and wood. The wood is for the allotment. The cinder blocks are to fix up our rain barrel, and the garbage cans are full of green waste that we're putting out at the end of this week. But right here I have a bunch of hostas and some ferns because the cedar trees are here. They cast a ton of shade, but I didn't want this space to go unwasted, so I did make sure that we were able to plant something here to fill up the space. And you might be able to see down there a little peak of more ferns and hostas, and that's where I planted my mushrooms. So we are going to go over there later in this video. So this is my favorite view of the entire garden, is standing on the driveway right beside the retaining wall looking up. We have sage, peonies, foxglove. They're all flowering right now, and it's the ultimate fairy cottage garden, and it brings me so much joy to look at it. And this is why I wanted to film the June garden tour now, because the peonies are in full bloom and I absolutely love peonies. So I want to take you through all of them and show you how beautiful they are. And this one is just coming to the end of its life. This is called Coral Sunset, and it starts off with a really bright pink coral color, and it has the title Sunset in it because it fades to white. And this one is just such an incredible beauty, but there are so many more up here to show you guys. So let's start with the peonies. I looked at my order of my peonies to get you the full title of it, but when I'm Googling the pictures, they don't quite look the same. So this could either be Peaches and Cream Peony or Sweet Harmony, but the Sweet Harmony looks a lot more pink than this one does. So I'm gonna call this one Peaches and Cream because it just makes sense that it has white flowers on it. But this is such a beautiful one that has mostly white with just some lines of pink inside of it, and the bottom of it has a bit of pink on it as well. And this is, I think, the first year that it's bloomed, and I'm on my third year of growing them because I have 8 or 9 different peonies in the garden, and I just absolutely love how this one is looking. All right, so this one is the one that I think is called Sweet Harmony, and it's a lot smaller of a bloom, but this beautiful light pink. This is for sure the first year that this one has ever bloomed, so I had no idea what this one looked like or what the size of the flowers was going to look like. And I might just have to bring some of these in since there's a few that haven't opened yet. these are the perfect time to be cutting them and bringing them inside. But I absolutely love the color of this one. Obviously, I'm really into the pink peonies because they're everywhere. And I'm super excited to see next year when we get more blooms, because it means I can cut more of them and bring them in the house. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And then over here, I have foxgloves. And these self-sowed. I have no idea where they came from. And the funny thing is that foxgloves are biennials, so they are supposed to be flowering in the second year, where they produce leaves in the first year and flower second. But I do not remember having any plants in the garden last year, because I probably would have pulled them, and I didn't sow these seeds. So I have no idea where they came from, but I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with them. They're so beautiful and they look incredible beside the peony blooms. And it was just such a perfect timing to have foxgloves and peonies blooming at the exact same time. And I know that I will already be planting some foxglove plants and seeds in this garden for next year, because I just have to have more. Okay, so before we move on to the other peonies, I did want to show you this one. This is your most common variety. It's called Sarah Bernhardt, and I got this one at Home Depot. But literally, look at this. There's 3 blooms here, and there's actually a 4th one coming. And what a beautiful cluster of flowers. And the reason that I picked Sarah Bernhardt is because it has such an amazing scent to it. And a lot of my garden decisions are driven by scent, because I just love picking flower varieties that come in beautiful scents, because if you're going to enjoy a garden, you may as well enjoy it both visually and with your other senses. So that's specifically why I picked this one. Plus, I really love bringing them into the house, so that way my whole house smells like peonies. And then I have some milkweed over here, but behind it is a purple lupin. And this is the first time I've ever had a lupin bloom at my house ever, because usually the bunnies eat the plants before it ever goes to flower. So this is my one prized lupin, and it's just finishing flowering now. But again, I just love the tall stalks of flowers, and I'm so happy that we got a single one here. And I know Colin's happy about it too, because he also loves lupins. And then finally, just over here, I'm gonna pop over. We have our amazing rhododendron. I was for sure thought this thing was dead. It's lost all of its leaves up it. It looked so sick this winter. It just looked really, really sad, and yet it still managed to bloom. So I have to do a little bit more research on rhododendrons. I know that they like acidic soil, but beyond that, I don't know a ton. So if you love rhododendrons and you have big, beautiful ones, please drop a comment below on your best tips for rhododendrons, because I really want this to get bigger and to thrive. I've seen them at botanic gardens as these massive trees or bushes, and I think it would be incredible if it filled up the whole space here and was able to bloom these beautiful pink blooms, and the insects absolutely love them. So I'm very happy to keep it in my garden, and I would love to make sure that it thrives here and doesn't stay this small, sad plant. So again, if you have any tips, just let me know. Okay, so coming over here now, I have my two last peonies. This one is called Felix Kraus, and 100% this is the strongest peony that I have. It's absolutely loaded with blooms. Last year it was loaded with blooms, and it was only its 2nd year growing. So I'm super pleased with this one. I wouldn't say that the hot pink or this dark fuchsia, I guess, is my favorite color peony, but it does add a different texture and mixture to my whites and baby pinks that I'm growing everywhere. It looks really amazing with the purple sage there. And I have the really dark leaves of this plant that I also can't remember the name of, but it has like this little bottle brush flower that comes on it that smells divine. I'm gonna see if I can find the name of it, and I'll put it in the video for you guys here. But the foxglove mixed with the sage, mixed with the dark pink of this peony and the purple leaves, it looks like I know what I'm doing when it comes to perennials, even though it's not my strength, but I'm obsessed with it. And then this is called Mr. Ed, but I do want to call him Big Ed, because Mr. Ed puts off these huge, massive flowers. If you ever send me an email, this is the peony that's in the picture of my signature, because look at how beautiful and incredible it is. It doesn't really smell much, but it does have a light scent to it. And I definitely need to do a better job next year of staking this one, because this is one of those peonies, just like the Sarah Bernhardt, where the flowers are just so big and heavy that it really pulls down the stems on them. And a peony looks better like the Felix Kraus, where it's upright and has all these beautiful flowers, versus when it's just hanging and facing the ground. So unfortunately, that's not the nicest look, but I just haven't had a chance to stake it yet. And we have a second one coming in. Look how beautiful this bud is. Like, it's just incredibly beautiful. Okay, let's come over here. So in the rest of this garden, I have things like lavender, because Colin's actually a really big fan of lavender, so I do include it in my gardens for him. And there's nothing better than mowing the lawn or running your hand through lavender and just smelling it as it comes up. And it's funny because there's another foxglove plant right here that I also didn't plant, but if this one flowered this year, I'd be pretty happy. But otherwise, if you guys had smell-o-vision, you'd be smelling the peonies and the lavender right now, but sadly you can't. And so this is a variety of sage. I can't remember what variety, but I'm surprised it's alive because the voles just absolutely love to eat the roots of these plants. So every single year they're struggling, but they come back. And in fact that they've actually doubled in size. This piece here was never planted here. So I'm looking forward to digging this up and moving it around the garden, because there's a lot of blooms going on right here, but there's actually not a lot that's going on my left side over here. And so I'm definitely going to dig these up. What is that? A big bee. Never seen this type of bee before.
You want me to come closer?
Well, if you want to come look at it.
Where is it?
Right there.
I don't see it.
Right here.
Oh. Oh, it's just a bee.
But what kind of bee is that? It doesn't have that like bright of a butt compared to other bees. I don't know what type of bee that is. So you can see on my left side here that there really isn't that much going on. This was mostly yarrow. The yarrow absolutely takes over. So I dug up a ton of the yarrow to give away and filled it with some zinnias, straw flowers, status, and other annuals. So that way, I actually have a couple foxgloves in here too, so that way I can bring this side over to this side for next year. And then of course I left the yarrow in here because it's amazing for pollinators. I have some daisies and some echinacea, but they're not coming up yet. There's a couple different bees on these sage because bees go crazy for sage. So if you're ever looking for a plant that looks beautiful and brings in the bees, this is it. I also have some daisies over here and some pincushion. The pincushion is not doing very well because it's also one that the voles like to eat the roots on. And then I planted some of the Bennery giant zinnias back there, but they're still really small, so there's nothing really to look at on that side of the garden, but it will fill in nicely along with this one as it comes to bloom. And then right in front of me here, I have a cherry tree. So you'll have seen this on the June Garden Tasks video. If you haven't seen it already, you'll want to check it out. And this is a Romeo sour cherry bush. Technically, it's not a tree. And this was created, I think, at the University of Saskatchewan, and it's meant for cold areas like us here in Canada. You can grow cherry trees in the GTA or like the Niagara region. And I think out in the middle of BC, they can also grow cherries, but here in Zone 5 and colder, sadly, we can't grow many cherry trees. And if we can, they are sour types. And this specifically, this is part of the Romance series, and it's a self-pollinating one. So I didn't need to get 2 cherry trees because for me in an urban space, I have a difficult time figuring out where I can put trees and how many I can put. It's just not one of my strengths. I'd love to be better at incorporating trees into my garden, but for now, I'll have this Romeo cherry bush. So behind it, I have a mix of different plants. This was a fritillaria. These things are fun. They look like upside down pineapples, and it's done for the season. And I have a variegated sedum in here that's super beautiful, and most of this otherwise are black-eyed Susans and daisies. But this is the last peony that I haven't shown you yet, and this is my most expensive peony. I bought it for like $70 or $80 many years ago. I can't find the name. I'm gonna try and research it before I put this out for you guys. It has some type of royal name to it, like princess or queen or something like that. It's not a Bartzella, which is the most common yellow variety that everybody has. That's not what this one is. But can you see how incredible this yellow peony is? And it has this red veining in the petals. It's so beautiful. And this is a semi-herbaceous peony. So all of my other peonies will die right back to the ground in the winter time, but this one is a semi-herbaceous one. I think they're the Ito type of peonies, where they're not tree peonies and they're not herbaceous peonies, but rather a mix. So it dies back about 6 inches to the ground, and then it will grow off of those and come back up again. And I also just love the leaf structure of this plant. It's more like a fern. It's really beautiful. And below it are my hellebores, which have been blooming since, I don't know, like April or May, and they're still going strong. They're such a beautiful flower. If you do not have hellebores in your garden, you must get them, because they're one of the first to bloom. They're so beautiful and they just bloom for ages. And yes, I do have weeds in the middle of my garden, but that's fine. They're going to give pollination to different plants or different pollinators. And then over here in the springtime, this is filled with spring bulbs like tulips and hyacinths, because I love the smell of them. This is being slowly overtaken or overrun with Liatris blazing star, and these are native here in Ontario. So they put off this big, beautiful, purple, stocky flower, and they just multiply like crazy. They're all over my garden now, and to me, this is quite a happy plant to be taking over. So later in the summer, this is just going to be totally filled with spikes of purple flowers that the bees absolutely love. Okay, so that's everything for my perennials in the front garden. Let me take you over this way, where we've just added in vegetable gardens into our front yard. This is very new for us. We've never done it before. So if you watch our backyard revival video, then you'll see that these got brought in this year specifically. This is a metal raised bed that I bought off Amazon specifically to test it for you. It cost me 50 bucks, and I really want to find out if it's worth its money or if it's any different than the expensive gardens. So I call this Johnny's garden because our neighbor is 83 and I wanted to grow a garden for him, but he protested too much putting it in his backyard, so I built it here. And in this garden, it's a 2 foot by 4 foot, and I filled it to be a small garden. So if you grow in a small space, this is a perfect example for you. I have 2 lettuces, 2 peppers, 2 tomatoes, 3 cucumbers, a couple celery, and an onion in there, and then I've been sowing beets, carrots, and radishes in the middle of it, so that way they can grow in while the peppers and tomatoes get larger. So I'm really excited to see how this fills out. This lettuce is so incredibly beautiful. This is a red romaine lettuce and a gem romaine lettuce, and they're so beautiful, and they're totally ready to be harvested now. So I'm going to be doing that very shortly. And of course I have little radishes coming in through here, and my cucumber plant in the back. I did plant this in such a way because the sun is facing me right now. So I wanted to make sure that the smallest plants were in the front and the tallest were in the back. However, the tomatoes are outpacing the cucumbers right now. But once the cucumbers do grow taller and they end up over here on this trellis, then it shouldn't be an issue. They're just racing each other at the moment. And then over here, I have my root vegetables. So I do have a curly kale. I got this curly kale because I really wanted to try kale salad, and no other kales do kale salad as good as curly kale does. So that's what this specifically is for. And then I've got carrots growing here, some dill, some radishes. I've got some nice beets over here as well. And then of course dill, because the dill has self-seeded absolutely everywhere in my garden. So I have massive dill. But these are amazing for black swallowtail and eastern swallowtail butterflies to lay their eggs on. So I never ever remove the dill. And then of course I have my peas here, which are all starting to flower and produce peas. And I'm super duper excited to get my first taste of garden peas. Okay, next up are broad beans. This is such an underrated vegetable. It is very commonly grown in the UK and not very common to grow here in North America, and I don't know why. It's a cold season crop. They love the cold weather. They're already flowering now, which means that they are going to be putting out a bunch of beans. They're like an edamame or a soybean, where you peel the husk and you get these nice beans in the middle of it. They're super nutritious, and so they add protein to your food, and I absolutely love growing them, because why wouldn't you want to add this to your spring garden where you're getting access to food earlier? So if you don't grow broad beans already, you really should add these to your garden.
What are you gonna grow once they're done?
Oh, good question. Technically, we could add garlic to it when they're done.
Oh, for next year? But then the garlic wastes the whole bed next year.
Yeah, but we have lots of space.
Not anymore.
We'll see. Okay, and then in here, in this cold frame, I have kale, and you can see that the cold frame is not working for pests because the kale has now touched the top of it. So the pests do have access to lay their eggs and eat this. But otherwise, I've got kale, Swiss chard. There is lettuce hidden down here, which you cannot see, and some spinach going to seed, all because this self-sown dill has absolutely taken over this garden. And I've been questioning if this is a good idea. There's a couple things. The dill can help with the scent of it to keep insects away, and it's also providing shade to the lettuce to stop it from bolting. But on the flip side, there's a potential that it could actually be blocking the sunlight from hitting the lettuce. So I've just been kind of experimenting to see how this is going to grow, but it's been a pretty fun garden, just absolutely stuffed with herbs and lettuce in it. Okay, and this is the final part of my front garden. This is a lilac bush. It's a dwarf lilac bush. And this year it only put out like 4 blooms, which is so odd. But when I was walking around the city, and I've even heard from people outside of Ottawa that their lilacs had a shortage of blooms, there's something that happened, but it's actually been a blessing in disguise, because for the lack of blooms that I had, this lilac has probably grown 18 inches in height and width this spring, which means that it's going to be that much bigger with that many more blooms for next year. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then down here in this insect bag, again, you would have seen in my June garden test video, this is a white currant bush. So I'm just protecting the currant fruit from any insects. So that is what's growing in here. And then otherwise, I just have a lavender bush and a spirea over here. That's everything for the front garden. So come with me to the backyard now. Okay, so I lost my cameraman for the remainder of this video, but that's okay. I think that you and I can do this together alone. So let me continue on this tour as we move into the backyard, which is mostly vegetables, but there are some perennial flowers here too. Okay, so first up is this one section over here. Okay, so we used to have a shed here when we first moved in, but it was falling apart. There was a squirrel living inside of it. And since it had been built and the cedars had grown, they obviously grew over top of the shed. And now there's this massive gap after we took it down. So we're really just trying to figure out what to do over here. We're thinking a fence, but I've also been thinking about building a bit of a structure here for filming videos for you guys, where I could have a nice background and a working table where I could have my pots and I can get as messy as I need to. So we're really just tossing this idea. Over here, that yellow bin, that is from FCMP Outdoor. It is a salt bin for the winter time, but I've actually filled it with soil because at my last house, I used to have this really big outdoor bin that I stored soil in, and I miss having that because it's really good in the springtime when I'm potting up plants. I don't have to go out and buy bag soil because I've stored bulk soil over the winter time to be able to grab whenever I need it. Or if I'm potting up anything for fall planters or whatever it is, I'm gonna have an entire bin of soil there. So that's exactly what I'm using that for. And then you can see behind me that my greenhouse, my little cheapy greenhouse from Canadian Tire, is sitting here because I also have thought about the idea of getting a greenhouse put over here, but I have just been unsure about what company to go with or what size, because we get high winds and snow load and they're really expensive. So I've just been trying to figure out who's the best company that I want to go with and if that's exactly what I want to do there. So in the meantime, I do have this cute little one that I am going to put a little bit further towards that yellow bin, and then I'm going to put the plastic cover back on it and see if it can survive, because they're really, 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 really light, and if there's any type of wind, it will blow it and like a plastic grocery bag. But I'm hoping, because the house is in front of me here and there's two sides of cedar trees there, that's super, super protected from wind and that it'll do a better job of not blowing away. So right now we are just moving this because behind me has been a garbage pile for the last like 6 months, because we've been renovating our house and we didn't want to get a dumpster until everything in the house was done, and we finally finished the floors in our kitchen. So we were able to get rid of the garbage, which means I can finally start working on this side of the garden. Okay, so right beside me here is my new Vago garden. Oh, and that window is from a cold frame. The cold frame is on the behind the cedars there. I just don't have it on right now because I accidentally broke it. The window is old. It's an old wood framed window, and they don't make them like that anymore. They now make them vinyl, and it was frozen into the ground, and I was just being a Wreck-It Ralph, I guess, and tried to pull it up when it was still frozen to the ground, and I ripped part of the wooden frame off. I'll show you. Right here, you can see how I broke it off. So I just want to take some time and try and fix it, because buying a new window is expensive. It has to be exactly that specific height for my cold frame. It's too complicated to try and get a new window. It just makes a lot more sense for me to try and fix that one. So that is the plan. So otherwise, this is my new Vago that I got. It is the standard size U-shaped garden, but I actually got, I think, 3 extension kits that I used to make it longer than it was if it was a standard size, and then each of the ends of the U are wider than they should be. And you can get a jumbo version of it. They have like a standard and a jumbo and whatever, but it was deeper, not wider. And my space here that I have between my house and the hedges isn't that big, so I didn't want it to be longer. I wanted it to be wider, so I just built it myself and customized the entire garden. The only thing with that is that we did have to customize the tension rods, because obviously there was hardware that didn't come with it because it wasn't built to be like this. But because we always do work around the house, that was nothing for us. The extra bolts that we needed to customize the tension rods only cost us $1. It was really, really simple to do. So the theory with my gardens is twofold. One was I wanted to test out metal raised beds for you guys, and the second was that the allotment was supposed to have everything in it that's a long-term growing plant that we don't harvest regularly, like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and squash. And our house was supposed to have all of the foods that you eat more often, like beans, lettuce, zucchini, the ones that harvest really quickly. And it's not turning out like that because the allotment is not going the way I had planned. And you guys can catch up with my allotment vlog separately, but things are just not that great there. So at least I'm so thankful to have this garden here. So let me show you guys what I'm growing. Okay, so I have a bunch of celery here. This is the Utah variety. I have also a Red Venture variety of celery too, but that's a better one for cooking than the Utah. The Utah is like your typical grocery store variety that you're gonna wanna snack off of. So I have some celery here. We've just direct sown some spinach in here. And then I have my Swiss chard, but sadly my Swiss chard is being fully attacked by leaf miner right now. And I have a video on leaf miners if you want to learn more about them. They're not a huge deal, but I just really haven't been maintaining my Swiss chard that well. And then I have a ground cherry here, although I grow ground cherries all the time, and my seedlings failed this year, so I had to buy some. And I'm starting to think that this is a tomatillo and not a ground cherry. And the problem with that is twofold. Is one, I don't know if I even like tomatillos, and two, they're not self-pollinating, and I only planted one here because ground cherries are self-pollinating and don't require anything. So we're gonna see what happens with that. And then I have a black beauty zucchini here because we love our zucchini, and I'm excited about that. A couple of varieties of eggplant, and then some bush delicata here because delicata is our absolute favorite type of squash. And then some cucumbers over here, Lebanese cucumber, Space Master, some pickling cucumbers, all the cucumbers. And there's this one zucchini that is kind of taken the world by storm in popularity, and I actually have some complaints about it that I want to show you. Okay, so this is the Escalado zucchini, or escalator zucchini, and it has literally been bred to grow vertical as if it was, I don't know, a cucumber, I guess we'll say. But the biggest problem with it is that it grows zucchini the way that peas would grow, where the taller it grows, the more flowers come on it, but new flowers don't show up on the bottom of the plant. So a new zucchini only comes every like 6 inches or so, which means that for every foot of the height, you're only getting 2 zucchini on it. So by the time it's 10 feet tall, you'll have gotten 20 zucchini, versus you can get 20 zucchini from one normal growing zucchini plant. So it's kind of hard to maintain. Not to mention, the fruit on it grows incredibly slow. They're only this big. Normally a zucchini fruit will grow within a couple days. Like if you don't check on it fast enough, it's overgrown and goofy. But this one, like you can wait 2 weeks and the zucchini is still tiny. So for me, this is gonna be on a list of varieties of plants that I'm never gonna grow again. So here I have basil. We've self-sown some lettuce here, or succession sown some lettuce here. I've got a Cal Wonder pepper, a Jimmy Nodero, and then 3 different varieties of tomatoes that are doing like incredibly well here. In comparison to the garbage tomatoes that I'm growing at the allotment, these are literally like chef's kiss of perfect health. They're beautiful and they're putting out flowers already, and I'm really, really so glad that I planted some tomatoes at home, because I would have really regretted it if all of them went to the allotment and they looked the way they do. And then on the other side over here, the soil looks so dry and so bare because of course I'm planting it in the spacing that they're gonna take when they're at full size, but since it's June, they look so small and so empty. And my eggplants have been doing atrocious because our nights are still falling below 10 degrees and our days sometimes are hot and sometimes they aren't. And it's been really dry this spring. This is the driest spring I've ever had in Ottawa since I moved here. So my eggplants are looking like so sad. And then I've got some bush beans back here, tons of shishitos because Colin's a huge fan of shishitos. So that is one that we planted here because you harvest shishitos so often. And I'm growing 8 or 9 varieties of eggplant. So I made sure to have one of every single eggplant variety here. So if things go wrong at the allotment or if people steal them, at least I can try them here. But the problem is that I had some animal come here and dig up the eggplants and just toss them on the soil beside it, roots and everything. It was like they scooped it out, threw it to the ground, and then left it. They didn't rip off the leaves, they didn't refill the hole, nothing. It was as if someone just undug it and dropped it there. So they're struggling a little bit after that. And then one of them did actually get its roots ripped off of it. So I just buried the stem deeper and was watering it regularly because roots should grow off the stem. But Colin was weeding on the weekend and it was a really small, sad looking plant and he weeded it out. So my ping tongue eggplant has been removed and I'm really sad about it. So we're down a variety here, but there is more ping tongue at the allotment. And then of course I have more Utah celery because I'm obsessed with eating it. I never really cared for celery from the grocery store, but when I started growing it from my own garden and snacking on it, I've been obsessed ever since. So I need to make sure that I include it in all my vegetable gardens. Okay, let's move over to my raised garden beds. It's a brand called Raised Garden Beds Canada. Okay, so behind me are bags, and those are filled with chives and strawberries because when we moved the wooden gardens to the front, there were strawberries in it, and we just haven't figured out where to put them yet because all the gardens are full. But the rest of these raised garden beds are actually filled with sweet potatoes. I have Japanese yam, orange sweet potatoes, and then purple sweet potatoes in here, or ube, and I'm super excited. So because sweet potatoes don't have enough time to crawl in our gardens here in Canada and root new sweet potatoes, I do intend on growing the leaves over top of this trellis because the leaves are full of nutrition and they freeze incredibly well and turn into like a powder. So they're amazing for smoothies all winter long. So the plan is as they start to grow taller, I'm gonna train them up the trellis and then be harvesting the greens off of that and eating them and freezing them. So hopefully by the end of the summer, this whole trellis is gonna be covered in sweet potatoes. And obviously the sweet potatoes at the end are the prize of it all, but I didn't realize how much I really wanted those sweet potato leaves in there. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, let's move over to my potatoes. So I have 2 bags of potatoes here, which I showed you guys in a video. I'm just gonna move into the shade because we're experiencing a hot day today. Okay, so over there in the green bags are potatoes, and those are the ones that I filmed for you guys showing you how to grow potatoes in bags. This is actually my favorite way to be growing potatoes because they're so much easier to harvest. And so in one bag I put in whole potatoes, and the second bag I put in pieces of potato, and I have just finished hilling them up. So the front one has actually grown over top of the soil and the second one is still working on it. So that's why you can see a little bit of green in the first one. But that is one of my favorite things to do. And I don't really grow potatoes as like a food to eat for like survival, although they are an amazing crop for survival, but I just grow this one because it's fun. So here is my comfrey, and this is what I grow for a natural fertilizer. If you don't know anything about comfrey, I made a video all about it and I have a blog post about it, and it's specifically how to make comfrey tea, which is not for drinking, but it's actually a fertilizer that you make for your plants. And then behind it is my rhubarb. This was here when I moved into the house. So I moved this when I moved in, that rhubarb, because it's under the hedges, but I made the mistake after dividing it and moving it that I harvested off of it the next year. So it actually lost all of its energy and died. So the new location didn't stay the same. But I do have that one there, and although it's under the hedges, I still am able to harvest off of it, although it is a little sad this year, so I'm leaving it. I harvested a little bit off of it, but I'm leaving the rest of it now so that way it can grow a little bit stronger. And then over on this side here are all of my raspberries. These have exploded compared to prior years. So I had, oh, the flowers are open, there's a bee on it. I had raspberries, blueberries, haskaps, and blackberries in here. I specifically have yellow raspberries because they're my absolute favorite variety. And there was sage and oregano in here, and something about this past winter, but this has literally, it's in the lawn now, it's everywhere, and we've been here for 3 or 4 years now, and it wasn't like this until this year. So this is the original plant, the one that's hanging over. It's very large, and all the other small ones are because the rabbits ate them to the ground, except for this one cane. So this one is huge, and the rest are just starting to grow again. They, needless to say, they've outcompeted the sage and the oregano and the blueberries. And my blackberry, Colin accidentally got confused and pruned it to the ground, if not fully gone. So I'm not sure we're ever going to get blackberries again unless I buy a new plant. So that's not going to happen, but the haskaps are still doing really good. And after 3 years, this is the first year we've ever been able to harvest off of it. And it was actually quite nice. It's like a sour blueberry or an unripe blueberry. So I really enjoyed it, but they are all gone now because the birds ate everything. There's nothing left. So Haskap season is already over for us, but raspberry season is already starting to come in, so I'm really excited for that, and it looks like we're gonna have a really good year this year. And then this way I'm gonna turn you is where we built our new perennial garden last year. This was all grass. Technically our entire backyard was all grass except for a really small deck that was out the back door, and a tree and a shed over in the distance. Otherwise nothing else existed here. We built the deck and all these gardens. All of this was us that we built. And this perennial garden was a new plan for me for this last year. And the whole purpose was our deck has a glass railing on it, and I really wanted when we're sitting on the deck to be able to see flowers coming up. So I am going to take you to look at it, and we are going to check it out. The one thing I'm disappointed with right now is that I don't have any spring blooming flowers in it, so it's all just green right now. It's a beautiful garden, but it's all just green, and so for me that's a bit of a disappointment. So we have our beautiful bird bath that the robins and the sparrows absolutely love, and otherwise right now we've got irises, lavender, some sedum, and hostas, and that's kind of the bulk of it. There is some foxglove that I planted last year, so they were doing their leaf thing last year and they're going to be blooming this year. And I had planted some annuals in there last year. The straw flowers were like beautiful, so they did amazing. Of course, with any perennial garden, it takes multiple years for it to look amazing. So all those gardens that you see with tons of flowers, either those people do it professionally or they've been working on that garden for years and years, moving things around and making them look good. And that is what I'm working on here with my all green garden right now. I have some astilbe below me. I have some really nice rudbeckia. And then I planted a bunch of annuals like strawflower and status to really help fill this out, and some zinnias, so it's gonna help with that. But until then, this is how it looks, and I'm quite happy with how it's looking right now. It adds like a nice little feature to this backyard between the deck and the hedges, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it progresses. And then over here, we now have 2 of these composters set up. And we also got these from FCMP Outdoor. So we're excited to finally get into composting and having all of our yard waste go into a composter to turn back into soil to come back into the yard versus sending it off to yard waste all the time, because that's such a waste for us when we could be returning it back to our soil. And we still have our shed to work on. We have to finish siding it, so that's for another day. But coming over here, if you watched my backyard garden refresh, you'll know that I got rid of my 3rd garden bed here, and the grass has finally grown into it. And so now I just have my 2 gardens left. I have my metal sprout box garden and my wooden raised bed here. And this one is also totally filled with self-sown dill. So it has some spinach going to seed that we're going to collect seed from, some dino kale, and then it is absolutely filled with edamame. We have about 60 plants in there. It's another big one of Colin's favorites, so we made sure to fill it all up. And we really need to go through and harvest all this dill because it actually is starting to hinder how much the edamame can actually get light. So I am thinking about making a dill pesto with this. I've never done that before, so I thought it would be a really interesting way to attempt to use all of this dill up. I've already dehydrated a bunch of it because I've harvested a ton, so the dill is the next choice here, and I'm really looking forward to trying that. And then finally, my sprout box in front of me here has all of my spring vegetables in it, and I'm really, really excited because I'm growing cabbage, and this is the first time I've ever grown a proper heading cabbage. I've grown Napa cabbage before, and they're starting to form their heads, and I couldn't be more excited. Okay, so we have heads of cabbage in here. Of course, it's totally surrounded by cilantro, all self-seeded cilantro in here. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cabbages because I plan on making sauerkraut with them. I have German heritage in me and I'm obsessed with sauerkraut, and I can't wait. I bought a sauerkraut crock and I can't wait to make some and then eat it because it's obviously the most delicious food ever. I also have a kale in here, another red lettuce, and at the far back over here I do have some cauliflower. But right now, They don't really seem to be forming a cauliflower head. I don't know why they're experiencing blindness or if I'm just being impatient, but I'm a little concerned about why the plants are so large and yet there's not a single bit of cauliflower head growing in them. They're definitely forming like a tight center to them, but I'm just not seeing anything. And I've been growing them now for a couple months now, so I'm surprised that I'm not seeing anything in the head of them, but you know, you gotta let nature do what nature wants to do. Oh, yes. And I also have a zucchini in here and a pepper and carnations and ground cherries because I ran out of space, so I started overstuffing the sprout box. Whoops. Okay, so we've pretty much done a full circle of the house now. So the only thing that's left is the side yard, which I showed you at the beginning of this video where I'm growing my mushrooms. And so this is it just from another angle, trying to keep you guys in the shade because it is really hot out today and the camera said no thank you. So these are more raspberry bushes, but I also have black raspberries in it. This is another native to Canada or Ontario, and they kind of taste like the blue raspberry portion of a rocket popsicle. I love them. They're just seedier, but I absolutely love their flavor. They're super fun to grow and eat. And then otherwise along the fence here, I have mostly hostas and ferns, but I did buy a clematis and I'm gonna show you exactly why. Because when we are sitting on our deck, this is the view that we have from our deck, sitting here and literally, okay, I love my Canada flag. I spray painted this on a couple pieces of wood and I'm obsessed with it. Then I have my raspberry bushes and my black raspberry bushes. And then I have all of these hostas and ferns with the corten steel on it. They look so beautiful. We are planning on fixing this downspout because I hate it. I'm not sure if we're gonna put a rain barrel on the side or go up above. But anyway, there's this beautiful spot here of fencing. And so I want to put a clematis on it. So that way when we're sitting on the deck looking this way, the whole portion of the fence is just covered in blooms. So that's next on the project, and in my fantasy world of what I'm hoping to see here is an entire fence line of clematis blooms. But otherwise, that's literally our whole yard. We've done an entire loop from the front of the house all the way around to the back, mixed with all of the perennial flowers and the veggies and the fruits. And otherwise, that's everything I want to show you for now. We have tons and tons of projects to do back here, including fixing the rain barrel, siding the shed. I'm hoping to get some more gardens in the future, fixing up the flowers in the back perennial, lots and lots to do. But I do hope that you did enjoy this tour. And if you have any questions or want to see anything else, just let me know and I'm happy to share it with you. But if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and then check out this video over here. Bye.